Quick question, just want to try and gauge the level of knowledge and experience. How many of you have heard of the blockchain? How many, keep your hands up if you know what it is. Okay, how many of you got Bitcoin? Okay, how many of you wish you had Bitcoin? Right, okay, all right. I've got a feeling this might be a combination of education plus product, just gauging by the audience altogether. And I think what I might do, if you're happy with this, is to do, there's a 90-second version of the blockchain in plain English that I speak at various sort of conferences around the world and that sort of thing, and I do this 90-second thing. Is that worth doing? Just to give you a feel for it, and then we can get into what the tech's about. Yeah? All right, okay. Right, well, let's, sorry, let's take your phone. Right, this is a wonderful phone. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Kate. This is Kate's beautiful phone, all right? 200 bucks. That's cheaper, half the price, isn't it? I'll give it 300. Right, okay, so let's imagine I've stolen Kate's phone. Under normal circumstances, we go to a court of law, and there would be a judge that would say, yes, you did, no, you didn't. The prosecuting counsel would be there, defense counsel would be there, etc., etc. Okay? So, to establish the truth, it would just be going to court. Nice and simple. Let's imagine now, because Kate is so infamous in what she's doing, that she is chased around by 5,000 members of the paparazzi. Independent photographers taking photographs of Kate wherever she goes. And they all take a photograph of me stealing Kate's phone. Now, I'm going to be in a bit of trouble, aren't I? All right? Because in order to change the facts, I've got to persuade 2,500 of those photographers to change their images. And let's imagine that I have to persuade 2,500 of those photographers to change their images in less than 10 minutes. Because after 10 minutes, those images are going to be locked away in a bank vault and permanently sealed with a combination lock on it that has more combinations on than there are grains of sand on the planet. Okay? I'm in trouble, aren't I? And let's imagine now there's even a camera looking in on those images. You reckon I'm going to be tasting prison food? Probably, pretty much. Okay? Thank you. Now, that is actually the blockchain. All right? Except instead of the images of me stealing Kate's phone, you've actually got computer data. Okay? And that data is actually spread across 5,000 independent computers connected around the world. With the Bitcoin blockchain, there's about 5,700 computers connected right around the world. And when that data is actually shared across those 5,700 computers, once 51% of those computers agree the data, that data is then permanent and cannot be altered. So the idea is the blocks of data are actually sealed together with a permanent seal, just like a really powerful wax seal. And once that's done, it cannot be altered. So the blockchain is a peer-to-peer database that is immutable. In other words, once it's been created, it cannot be changed. Okay? And just to give you a quick use case, just to sort of paint a bit of reference point to this. I'm a POM, can't do anything about it. Been here 15 years. Still got money in the UK. All right? To fund this business, it is quicker. If I want to get the money from the UK, it's quicker for me to fly to London, Heathrow Airport, drive down to Brighton, which is where my bank is, pick up the money from the bank, drive back up to London and fly back to Sydney and just go via the banking system. Now that's... Sorry? Yeah. Now that's kind of crazy, right? Because in today we've got the attention span of a nanosecond. We want things to happen yesterday. With cryptocurrencies, typically with the Bitcoin blockchain, it's all cleared in 60 minutes. There are other cryptocurrencies, don't get too heavily involved in it. There's one called Dash that is actually implementing instantaneous transactions. And they cost cents rather than the $50 the banks charge, plus 2.5% to 4% below the market rate on exchange rates. So that really just paints top level of the blockchain. You're all now experts. Okay? Everybody agree they're an expert? Yeah? Now, oh yes, I've got it in my back pocket here. So, okay, one of the key things that's really important about what I just said is the permanent nature of any form of transaction. For example, if you think of a Bitcoin, every single transaction that has ever happened with the Bitcoin is on the Bitcoin blockchain. You can see it live. Just go to a thing called blockchain.info. You can see every single transaction. But what it means is any transaction can define at a point in time this event happened. And that's where provenance comes into blockchain, and this is where this actually works with what we're trying to do, which is basically try to solve a major problem. which we'll explain very soon. So, we're actually in the middle of an ICO. How many of you have heard what an ICO is? Initial coin offering? Okay, how many people have been living under a rock for the past? Okay, just as an indication, ICOs have actually raised $1.6 billion worth of funds this year so far. VC funding in the same space is about 450 million. So it's a brand new way of financing transactions, financing businesses. But basically, the problem that we are trying to solve, he says, pointing, right, is, we will get there, this. The issue of film piracy. Now, just like Naima was talking about, we're not just trying to sort of hit whack-a-mole on the back, the top of the head. It's very much about hitting the drivers of piracy rather than anything else. And it's not just in the film industry, it's also social media theft. There's a report that came out, 73% of the top performing Facebook videos were stolen from YouTube, not just linked from YouTube. They were downloaded, stripped to producer content and put up on Facebook because the algorithms were better if you did that. So it works out, it's about 73% of the top performing videos. Equally, piracy is personal for me. I wrote and directed an independent feature film, and that actually got pirated. That's 3 years ago. So they shouldn't have pissed me off. Okay? So what we are doing, we're actually creating decentralized, hang on, do apologize, decentralized registration, anti-piracy and distribution platform which leverages blockchain technology. It's not just purely blockchain-based technology. And basically, we are aiming to try and solve film and video piracy by 80%, and that's by hitting the drivers of piracy and not just the symptoms. Now, those core drivers, as we know, especially here in Australia, it's about giving access to content when you want, how you want, at the price point that's fair. Now, how many of your friends have pirated Game of Thrones? How many of your friends? Because none of you would do that because you're decent fellas, chaps and girls and that sort of thing, right? Okay. Now, more often than not, it's because we can't actually get access to the content. And that's a major, major problem, a major driver of piracy. I'm a big fan of Silicon Valley, the HBO show. And to get it here, you need to buy a complete package on Foxtel. I don't want to get the shopping channel. As you can see from my clothes, I don't use the shopping channel. I need to perhaps get one. I don't know. But it's fundamentally because we can't get access to the content. And the second thing is that we need to improve trackability and deterrence, because people pirate because they can. Let's be honest. It's nice and easy. Okay. So the way that we're trying to do it is slightly different. Stage one is that we're creating. Hopefully that is a laser pointer. Yes, there we go. This is the distributed ledger. This is the peer-to-peer database type structure I was saying with the blockchain. This is the way it looks as compared to a centralized structure where you've got everything pointing to one central point of attack, for example. So it's a distributed database. And the idea is that we're creating a register of video content and associated distribution rights, and then we digitally fingerprint those videos. Digitally fingerprint those videos referencing those rights. And the second part is we're actually bringing together the creative community to actually help us solve the problem that's affecting the creative community as a whole. With the idea it's a community-based structure where individual people will actually offer their surplus bandwidth and their surplus computing power to actually help us with a search and detect structure for content providers. Then, so as I was saying, each node uses the surplus computing power and bandwidth. And the idea is that because we then have an anti-piracy structure, we flip those guys over to be a white hat peer-to-peer distribution. Now, of course, your friends BitTorrent movies when they pirate. And it's the idea that that's a peer-to-peer distribution structure. We're looking at a white hat structure. And we're just in discussions with a partner where we're hoping to announce a partnership imminently, where there's a peer-to-peer tech company that has actually just got approval from the film studios, which is actually much, much stronger than BitTorrent and much more secure. And we're hoping to partner with those guys imminently. The final part is a decentralized marketplace. And it's the idea that we've actually got the content producers here, and we've actually got the market influencers here, with the idea that there's a bidding engine in the middle. So if you think of the Mundine fight that happened February, March time this year, where you may remember that there was a guy in Queensland that beamed it to 150,000 people free of charge. Remember that event back in February? So it's the idea, and I'm not having a go at Foxtel, but imagine if they had the situation of the content over here, and they said, okay, here's a bunch of Twitter followers, a guy that's got a million, a guy or girl with a million Twitter followers, and 20,000 of those want to pay $10 rather than $65. And it's the idea they would connect the content producers directly through to the market influencers who then corral their tribes together, with the idea that it's then distributed by the structure we've looked at with the anti-piracy structures built in the back end. So that's the problem statement that we're looking at. And Sam, who's our CTO, is going to give you a quick product demo.
Hello. So this is a super early prototype just to demonstrate a bit of capability for the people that are interested in our project. Dashboard landing page, already logged in as someone called Tim Lee. So in terms of the use case for a user, say someone who is a cryptocurrency enthusiast and releases videos to YouTube and wants to protect that content, they can go to an interface such as this. After they've uploaded their content, we can see they've got a number of pieces of content that they've uploaded before. Some of these have been certified already, and there's some other ideas here about future features for the company. But this is the one we're interested in, and if we click on the certify button, that will take us through to a dialogue to effectively certify this new digital asset that the user wishes to certify and protect. So this process, effectively what it does, will do two things. One, it will embed a steganographic message within the video, which is very, very hard to remove. And the second thing it will do, it will take some information from this form about what the video is, who the person is that is registering it, and the steganographic message itself, and will register that information in a smart contract or blockchain. So web form, autofill, actually that's the next page, but there's some dummy information in here. This is basically just a React front end, just to sort of showcase some of the features. This is sort of certainly not final, just sort of representative of the final information. So this is sort of the information that can be registered to the blockchains. None of this is actually required, but it's optional, and it's used to improve the strength of your link, of your identity to the digital asset. You can just do it using a private key, but I think most users will probably want to use this information. So let's just assume that they want to import all that information. So in terms of actually registering content, because the cost base is sort of a one-off thing that we need to do in terms of transcoding the video, you sort of pay per go effectively, and you can pay either in our native cryptocurrency, which we'll accept onto the platform, or credit card. In this case, let's just use Ventana, which is a bit more interesting, and click on the certify button. So what this will do, this will go through and send a transaction to the blockchain, which will save some information to a live blockchain that we can then interrogate after. What we haven't hooked up here is the actual steganography just yet, but we'll be working on that over the next few weeks. Alright, so if I click the certify button, this is actually working live on one of the Ethereum test networks. So this transaction sent, I guess I can click on that, and that'll bring up the transaction on Etherscan, if anyone's familiar with this website. Basically just to show something's happening. And when that block is mined, we'll get a block number back. Hopefully.
Always happens in a live demo.
Yeah. So blockchain technology is pretty new still. it's good for some stuff. It's not good for other things. It's certainly not good for real-time transactions. That should work. It was working earlier today. Okay, there we go. So it's been mined. Then we can see the block number that was included. Very slow internet. Unable to locate block. Try again. There we go. So there's 8 transactions in that block, and if we dive down into that, then we can see, we'll be able to see the information that was, which contract was, I think it was just this contract is ours. If we go to the contract source, you can see sort of my name there. So this is our smart contract, and that's where that information was stored. That's kind of the technical explanation, but effectively what it means is that the information associated with this digital asset is now immutably recorded on a public data store that everyone can see. Okay, that public key and that optional publicly identifiable information is linked to that digital asset, and no one can change it. So we can produce a nice certificate with that same information, and you can sort of satisfy yourself that that's actually occurred. So the second thing that Tim mentioned was around the registered content search system. So this is more of a subscription-based model because of the nature of the cost base. Again, what we will hope to have in the future is a network of machines that will search some areas of interest on the web and tell us when they find a piece of watermarked content, and we can provide the miner to do that. And so for the customer that's actually paying on the front end, paying with cryptocurrency, this is what they see. Information to this effect, right? So they've got some analytics about what sort of piracy events have occurred in the past, and they've also got some configuration options for each of their pieces of content that they've registered. They've just registered this piece of content, smart contracts in 90 seconds, and because they've just done that, they can now include it into the search system and perform some default action. If it's a marketing video, maybe they want to take no action, they just want to be notified. If it's Facebook, perhaps DMCA take no notice would be sufficient. Depends on where it was discovered. So it's basically a bit of a prototype of what that would look like. The third thing I wanted to show you was a bit of an idea about what it would look like to mine, to actually be included in this search network, to provide your computing power and bandwidth to effectively earn cryptocurrency and form a part of the search network. So one of the things I want to achieve with this is to have it to be super easy for customers of the platform to also form the network that will perform the searching. Kind of born from the idea that if you're in social media, or if you're into producing videos and uploading to YouTube, you'll have a relatively powerful computer, and maybe you want to effectively convert your electricity by doing this processing into cryptocurrency by running this miner that you can then respend on searching. So there's some new technology that's not quite ready yet, but will come online within the next sort of 12 to 18 months that will allow this to happen in the browser. So the browser will be able to be configured, with some information relating to how powerful your computer is, where you're located, so how much you pay for electricity, whether you want to have this sort of process in the background, maybe out of 2 cores, out of 4 cores on your machine, or whether you want to have it just process overnight when you're not using your computer, whether you've got unlimited downloads or how much you sort of want to spend in terms of downloads per month. And that's it. Then you just press join the mining pool, and you accumulate a balance of cryptocurrency as an incentive for providing this cumulative service, this community service. Does anyone have any questions about that? That's basically all I want to show you.
So it's like seeding torrents, but not double seeding torrents.
So this is just for the search side of things. The distribution side of things is a bit different. That really works. I'm not sure how much I can say. That works by stopping the leakage of the information in the first place. So when the customer consumes the information, so consumes the digital content, it's very hard for you to actually pirate that in the first instance.
And also, that currency, is that only used on that site, or can you transfer it to other Bitcoins and buy it?
So it's tradable, as all sort of Ethereum-based tokens are, but so it's been spawned specifically for our purpose. So we will accept it for the purposes of paying for services on this platform. So it's intrinsic to the platform.
But you can sell it on. There are about 45 cryptocurrency exchanges worldwide, and we're talking with 3 key ones that we're once the crowd sale happens, then with a fair and following wind, once they see that it's going to be successful, then they'll take it as a cryptocurrency coin and exchange it for Bitcoin, which then you can exchange for USD or Aussie dollars, whatever it might be.
I'm not a front end guy. I'm an engineer, so there's a lot of stuff that happens in the back. We've got steganography working. We've obviously got the back-end integration to the blockchain working. So yeah, when we get full funding, we'll hire some proper front-end people.
I was just going to have
Just a sec. We'll get to the questions later, if that's okay. But hold it there. I'll get back to you.
Done.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's right.
All good. Okay. Thank you very much, very Victor. Okay. Really. And do you have a typical persona that you're focusing on in terms of content creators? I mean, not necessarily films, but
I guess we've interviewed a number of filmmakers across the globe, ranging from, there's a guy in Melbourne who's produced the Aussie film The Legend of Ben Hall. I don't know if anybody's seen that at all. It's got some good traction in Germany, and they've just released the Blu-ray in the States. 50% of his downloads have been pirated. And the problem is, for him, he can't make a second movie. If he doesn't pay his investors back, he just cannot make another movie. And if you replicate that across the music business, across photographs, across any form of the creative space, we're going to actually lose a lot of the independent voices, those controversial voices, those cultural voices, and we're just going to have mass-produced rubbish, which factors piracy coming in. And we'll have lots of fluffy cats and dogs and cat videos, which I'm sure we all adore, and just bland content that factors in 50% piracy. And it's just, this is why, there's a bit of a movement, a bit of a mission as well.
Yeah, so it's really the independent creators that will probably benefit from this.
It's independent creators that are going to benefit most of all. I mean, I think the film studios, we've spoken to a few of the film studios, they love the concept. I mean, the only concern that some of the film studios have is they feel they might be bastardizing some of their existing clients, which we get. But it's very much that the way that we see it is because people actually want content. They don't want to commit to $85 a month with Foxtel. They just want to be able to say, I just want these shows. I want these when I want, how I want, at the price point that's there. So it does mean that we're disrupting part of the actual model. The independents love it. The film studios will come eventually, I think, because that's the way the market's going, the way we see it.
John?
I thought that was super interesting. I have so many questions. My first one relates to the token sale.
Yes.
So can you speak about why you actually need a separate token for this and where the intrinsic value in that is?
Okay, basically, if you think of global search, because it's got to be global search, because if you think of Bitcoin, for example, 80% of all Bitcoin miners are based in China. Now, to enable us to have smart search, we've got to have people in regional areas. So at the end of the day, we can't have all the search happening in China, and there's so much piracy that happens in China as well. So we need to actually have that globally. And if you try and pay somebody 2 cents for the amount of bandwidth they've actually provided, you can't do that via fiat currency. It would just be a complete nightmare. Whereas the cryptocurrency, theoretically, a Bitcoin can be divided into 100 millionth, for example. So the idea is you can just track and measure it. And if we've got the actual incentives for people to actually provide their infrastructure to us, we can actually reward that. And as the platform grows and we get more success, the value of those coins ultimately, subject to the platform being more successful, will tend to rise, on the cryptocurrency exchanges. So we have to incentivize them to provide the infrastructure, just like Bitcoin mining, because they'll compete. We'll be competing with Bitcoin miners and Ethereum miners and those type of things. But the parties that we're trying to bring to the party are the creatives, because they understand emotionally the issue, and all they want to do is just be able to connect to that issue emotionally, but also financially, so that they're incentivized. So we need to be in control of that incentivization structure.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Can I, at the risk of asking a second unrelated question, digital rights. So, to the Game of Thrones example, I can't remember who makes Game of Thrones, but HBO.
HBO, yeah.
They would sell the rights to Foxtel to be a distributor in Australia. How do you get through that arrangement?
Well, that's very much where there's a lot of infrastructural challenges globally, that distributors have regional agreements. And so the big challenge is, if you've got, because we've got, social media means that you can see what's happening in the States right now within a matter of seconds. So if somebody says, the Game of Thrones is absolutely fantastic, you've got to watch it, it's brilliant, amazing, 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 all your friends, none of you guys again, all of your friends are going to sort of say, well, hang on a second, I can't get it in Foxtel until 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. What's going to happen? And that's the reality. Because if people get access to the content when they want, how they want, at the price point that's fair, then the propensity to pirate will reduce.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly right. But Foxtel is paying HBO a shit ton to have exclusives to Game of Thrones.
Yes, absolutely.
If you bring this service, Foxtel loses out, HBO gets annoyed. I'm just wondering, do you have to do a deal direct with HBO to make this work?
Well, it's more the idea that there's a trend coming through where a number of the sports companies are bypassing distributors now. They're going direct. And if you think of Walt Disney have just pulled out of Netflix, for example, so they're bypassing a lot of the distribution outlets. So it's the idea, if one can actually create a new wholesale channel linked into the market influencers, corralling their audience together, then what it means is you've actually got, and I hate using the cliche, it's a bit of Uber for film and video distribution. It's a bit of a cliche in that particular way, but it disintermediates the major distributors. I think a lot of the distributors, I think their days are numbered unless they change, frankly.
I'll stop monopolizing the question.
Yeah, thanks. That was a really interesting presentation. I'll admit I did not know much about blockchain prior to this. I feel like you're solving a lot of really big, complicated problems, and what I'm struggling with is, what is that core thing that you're going after? It feels like you've got a couple of different products happening at the same time. What's that, number one thing, if you could only do one of them?
Okay, we're doing this in 4 stages. The first stage is to create the decentralized registration platform that basically says, here's an immutable record, I own this video, bang, here it is, and we'll digitally fingerprint that video. So then the idea is that anybody can actually locate their own video, right, and then issue a takedown notice to say, look, this has got my fingerprint in it, take it down. And the quicker you take a stolen video down, the quicker you reduce the number of fake, of people who've stolen your content, seeing the eyeballs seeing your film or video, because nobody wants to watch a video twice unless it's really good, unless it's a really good picture of cats and dogs. You don't want to watch it the second time. And so it's about getting, if the quicker you can issue that takedown notice, the better. So that's the first stage. The second stage, after we've done that, is very much this search and detect structure. So that's the next stage after that, and then we'll wrap around the marketplace linked into that side, because we'll be talking to a lot of the market influencers, in terms of all 3 of those stages, and then it naturally just flows into that latter part. So it's not going to happen on day one. We have to actually just hit that ownership and distribution rights and the ability to take it down as quickly as they can without an automated process being in place. And then the automated process will be 12 to 18 months away, we reckon, before we've really got a quality enough product to go to market with.
Okay, cool. And just one other question. So
Sure.
As you're working through those stages, how are you thinking about testing this and knowing that it's successful and it's time to move on to that next stage, or
It's very much going to be testing with the content providers, But also we've got to have the infrastructure as well. So as part of the token sale, we've allocated a portion of the cryptocurrency coins as an incentivization pool that is actually released every year. There's a 20% is released on day one, and then it reduces every year by 20% thereafter, with the idea that there's an amount of coins that are available to enable testers to be rewarded in the early stages when there's no revenue coming in. So we've built that into the actual model, so it's actually factored that in altogether.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so we'll get a question from Juan, and then we'll go to Nima, and then we'll go over here.
I actually have a very similar question there, but basically your product have too many product market fit there, if you know what I mean. And do you ever consider that you're going to separate this into multiple different products?
I mean,
to target different sort of audiences.
I mean, ultimately, our objective is to solve the film and video piracy problem. We know we're going to need to bring other parties in to help us do that. It's not just going to be one company by itself. Ultimately, there will be niche markets that will actually, that we're sort of working with, and the bulk of this will be open source, so others can develop on top of it. So, for example, those in the music business, or those in the photography business, or those in fashion design business, whatever it might be, can actually go hunting for those copyrighted content. So we're building the infrastructure, making it available open source. That's why we're putting the token sale up, because then that actually helps fund the actual structure so that others can develop on top of it. And we'll just create the community-based solution that will actually help others as well.
So that means we can start building streaming network and marketplace and that sort of thing on top of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the aim and intention. It's very much that we want to build the infrastructure layer, and then the overall model works on the basis that any money that comes in, 70% gets distributed amongst the pool, and 30% just covers the cost of running the platform, marketing, and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much that it's very much about the community coming together to solve the problem the community has, and the blockchain is all about community. It's all about WeCommerce that's really increasingly coming to the fore.
Okay, Nima, just take
I don't need a microphone. I have my voice. So my question is, what stops, I'm just trying to break it because that's how you know.
Sure, of course.
What stops people from trolling original content that currently is on your marketplace, where I can claim all of it's mine and then allowing it to be locked in basically locked into my account where no one can contest it because they don't even know that it's been digitally printed. So I can take something down, upload it on YouTube and put it on your platform and say it's my original content. How do you stop that from happening?
Well, I guess there's always going to be conflicts over some people that say, oh, that's my bit of content, or that's my bit of content. That's always going to be the same anyway. I mean, we will be able to pinpoint where content has come from, and there will be bad actors that we know who are going to try and game the system. And Sam's been working very much, with some structures, game theory, and that type of thing to overcome those type of things. I mean, in general terms, it's very much going to be defining the ownership. If there's a conflict, then obviously it has to be resolved. I mean, that's going to be, some people are going to try and game the system, and it's about identifying, the true ownership. I mean, clearly there will be some people that will try and do fraudulent stuff. We know that, and I mean, there will be fair use. There's going to be those sorts of claims coming through, and those sort of things. So we're, obviously we've got to get into the granularity of that when we're getting really to the deep MVP stage, because we've been talking to a number of YouTubers and that type of thing about the problems they're facing, and these sorts of things are coming up. But it's very much about sort of fine-tuning that process. So I think we've taken that strategic view altogether right now, and we're getting into the granularity as we get further and further into the
development. Is there a way of reversing that transaction or reversing that kind of fingerprint?
Essentially, in terms of it being a permanent register, I mean, if somebody's fraudulently registered, that record's going to be there. So if they've done that, that can be immediately sort of said, well, hang on a second, you fraudulently registered this.
So, a couple of things. One, it's a good question, and there will be ways you can break this thing. So a couple of assumptions. One, it's for new content going forward, and we assume that that the content creator hasn't been hacked and has taken their content off their computer before they've had a chance to register it and upload it. So that's assumption number one. And in the case that happens in some sort of bad actor attempts to do it, then you need to sort of resolve it via normal legal channels. The other thing to remember about a blockchain is that in a similar vein, it's like a time series data store. So it says, okay, at this point in time, I've registered the video that had already existed on the internet before. So I was like, well, didn't you just download that and register it? Because I mean, everyone can. I mean, I can go to say YouTube and get some logs. I can subpoena those logs and say, look, I can prove that this video existed before, and therefore it's not his. It's actually mine because it's my face on it, or something like that. So yeah, it's not that authoritative. It's more like it's a source of truth, but it's not like that base layer of authoritativeness that you can use in every single case.
Okay, we've just got a question over here, and then we're going to go over there. Just a bit.
Have you got anything in place if YouTube or Netflix decides to adopt a Bitcoin in the future?
To do the same thing? Yeah, we've got a price tag. They can just come along and just buy it.
All right.
It's interesting. Facebook have just acquired an anti-piracy sort of platform, and it's a major problem for them. And so, we know that these guys, over time, are going to say, hang on a second, these guys know what they're doing, let's talk to them more.
The other thing with those sorts of arguments is that it's very hard to buy, it's very hard to recreate the community, it's very hard to recreate the market. If you think of the example of Bitcoin, it's a relatively easy example, like what's stopping someone from just respawning another Bitcoin? It's the fact that everyone uses Bitcoin number 1, not Bitcoin number 2. It's exactly the same functionally, but no one gives a shit. Like, no one wants that. Everyone wants Bitcoin. So, like, that's the defensibility that you have with that sort of argument. Like, what's stopping someone else from just copying you? Well, the fact that you were there 6 months earlier and you've already got like 50,000 users and you're growing, and that's having trouble to competing against you. Yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Okay, so we'll do 2 questions over there and then one there, and that'll be it. So, go ahead, Pete.
So I have more of a question around, because there's a lot of kind of ICOs that happen that seemingly make big promises like decentralized Dropbox and stuff, and basically they have their token sale, they raise $30 million, and then kind of everything stops and they just take the money and run. What's your way of saying, how will you show that you won't do that?
I think, number one, we've been working this for 18 months. It's not something that we just wrote in the back of a fact packet and just put it out there. We've very carefully designed a token sale because there's so much regulatory risk in this whole space, and there's a lot of regulatory problems. We are also putting in place that all the funds will be held in escrow, and there's I'm getting into some technicalities here, but a multi-sig wallet. In other words, multi-signatures have to sign in to actually release any monies to hit certain milestones. So in terms of the money will be held in escrow. For example, any tokens that we have as founders, plus the team that's working with us, they're all held in escrow for 3 years. We can draw out.
By who though?
It's held by this multi-sig wallet. This is the idea.
Who are the co-signers of that?
Well, there'll co-signers that will have no economic benefit to work together. So we've got, for example, our lawyers will be one. We've got a guy who.
By the way, this is a security risk.
Yeah, I know.
This information. So,
yeah.
Suffice to say that there's 5 signatories and it's 4 out of 5 multi-sig. So Tim is not one, so don't bother hacking him. There's one person from our team who is a signatory, and the other 4 signatories are not a part of our team.
Yeah. So it's so that there's no economic benefit in those people being able to collude together. That's one of the key things that we've looked at.
Okay, I'll move on to those questions. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, trying to answer my own question and Nemo's. So, do you, with your steganography, do you fingerprint both the source of the video and the downloader? So that way you can identify who's pirating when they try and re-upload it to one of these sites.
What we do is okay, so you're a YouTuber, you've got a new video, it's on your computer. It hasn't been hacked, assumption number 1. You upload it to our platform, and we give it back to you fingerprinted. Now the idea is that it's completely invisible and inaudible, so you destroy the original. So all you've got left is a fingerprinted copy. So then anytime it gets redistributed across the internet anywhere at all, it will always link back to your registration point on that day when you paid for that service.
But that way we know who originated the video. But if we knew when you are selling the video using that process where you are mining, if you can also fingerprint the person who's getting it individually, then when they go and try to distribute it, you'll know who did the pirating.
I don't understand the question.
Maybe after.
I mean, I think, we're getting into very delicate privacy issues there, because one of the things we've tried to sort of think about is how far back into the phone can we go, for example, because in the labs we've actually taken a phone copy of a screen video, which contains the actual fingerprint, and it transmits across into that phone video, into that phone version. So, for example, I don't want to say too much because there's some secret sauce that's going on, other than to say that that gives us the ability to issue a kill switch. That's all I can probably say.
That's it.
Right.
I feel like there's an opportunity for a partnership with Adobe or one of those movie editing packages if they've got an API.
They're just closed. They're just closing Final Cut, aren't they?
Oh, they have. Okay. Well, something in that similar vein. If they've got an API or something like that.
Yeah.
There was a question over there, please. Thanks.
For the search and detect part, right, how would you go about implementing something like that? How would you get people to give up their bandwidth?
You pay them in cryptocurrency.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to.
Yeah, so it's the idea that if you reward them with cryptocurrency, and
sell that to
which,
people who pay for the service.
or it can be exchanged on the cryptocurrency exchanges for Bitcoin, and then can be converted to Aussie dollars or US dollars, whatever it might be.
So, someone who isn't me.
Okay, so the friends that pirate.
Yes, the friends that pirate used to use BitTorrent, but these
Yes.
days they use sites like Putlocker for
Yes.
VPN.
Yes.
So, if you've got data havens that
Yes.
are providing a lot of pirated content, and people are using VPNs to get at them, I don't understand how this
Well, we're aiming very much. We set our objective was to sort film and video piracy by 80%.
Okay.
Because we recognise that piracy is you've got softcore pirates here, hardcore pirates at the end. And we've spoken with the Motion Pictures Association of America, their Aussie representatives, about 3 weeks ago, and the number of takedown notices that they issue for Putlocker and all those types of guys is in the hundreds of millions a year.
Right.
And they have to identify each actual website address. They can't just say, here's a domain name, take them down. It's each individual website address. It's insane. It's insane. So it's about the idea of those friends of yours, for example, that are softcore pirators.
Let's not call them friends. It's too close.
Okay, all right. Associates, yes, or associates that pirate. It's very much about trying to give them the opportunity to buy content at a price point that's fair, because ultimately, if an episode is going to cost you $3 or whatever it might be, or watching the entire series might be $20, for example, then it's you're going to be less likely to pirate.
Sure, but I mean, obviously, Putlocker is free, and a VPN costs you $3 a month. So I'm trying to understand.
Sure. I mean, very much those hardcore guys. You've got to throw the FBI. You've got to throw the MPAA are all over those sites like a rash, and they have to be. But it's very much for social media theft, especially, for example. And it's equally if you've got any advertising agencies, for example, if you've got a marketing video, once it goes outside the major social media platforms, you've got no idea where it goes. So the idea is we can actually search and hunt for those on a positive basis.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.